just doing what Miami Dolphins do.
The pressure, he's in trouble. Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Phillips, the Dolphin touchdown.
Throwing deep upfield on the near side, man open, touchdown!
Looking deep, he's got a man. Touchdown!
The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown!
He's going deep. He's got it for the touchdown again. Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan.
1, 2, 3, hit! Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Today, I'm joined by David Furones. David, you've been working the Dolphin beat for a couple years now. You've been on the show a couple times now. I appreciate you for bringing a friend to the channel and coming back. Excited to chop it up with you. Before we get into it, before I get into the firing line here, bro, how you feeling covering an NFL team that's this exciting to be covering right now? Because you've come during a time where we haven't been talked about this since Marino was wearing the aqua and orange, or I mean Ricky Williams. You know what I mean? Brother, how does it just feel to be on the beat, to be traveling on the road, and to have a fun and exciting team? On top of that, a coach you can interact with and enjoy. I mean, how's just the experience of covering the team this year been so far for you?
Yeah, you're right about that, Reason. Thanks for having me on. Always a good time with you, as always. And yeah, I mean, I grew up in Miami watching the Dolphins, and I mean, I can't think back to a time. You got to go back to maybe early 2000s, like you said, the Ricky Williams era with those defenses that they had, Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas and Sam Madison, Pat Surtain, et cetera, et cetera. And then, going like that transition from earlier, the Dan Marino teams of the 90s, it really hasn't been since then that it's that much excitement around this team consistently. Sure, there was the 08 Wildcat team and winning the division, getting to the playoffs, and that was a lot of fun, but that was kind of like a 1 year in and out thing where they were a 1-win team the year before and then back out of things the next season. And 2016, a lot of things had to really line up for that playoff appearance. So this is the first time since back those years where you could really feel like, man, this is a real good football team that can compete. And it's been a lot of excitement for all the reasons you mentioned. And to add on, Coach Mike McDaniel is really a lot of fun to cover. He's always joking around with us. You guys all watch the press conferences, and man, he has something witty to say about every question, which is really fun because he'll start with something witty and then still answer your question for some content that you could use, give you a really good detailed answer. So, I mean, yeah, it's just been a joy to cover this team this season, and just past the halfway point, really looking forward to seeing what unfolds going forward.
You said something key there in your answer about when you're talking about the 08 team, about the year before and then the year after. I've said this, and I want to just hear your thoughts quickly on this. Don't you get the feeling that what they're building right now is going to be sustainable? Like the way they're working, Brandon Shore's doing an amazing job the way he's structuring contracts. You look at the team they're building. Just to you, doesn't it feel like what they're building, it's not going to be one of those 1 year wonders that you just name? It feels like it's going to be something sustainable for, I don't want to use the word long-term, but 3 or 5 years in the NFL is long-term if you think about it, especially if you're going about a running back's career. So what are your thoughts? Like, do you feel like this is something sustainable they're building?
Right. And that's why I say that. That's why, because I really do see it that, now you're seeing the way Tua's playing and you have your franchise quarterback, and it's not like the preseason questions of, okay, well, Tua's getting this year, and then we're going to find out when the Dolphins still had 2 first-round picks, and now we're going to find out if they need to use them to move up or to package them for another veteran quarterback that could be requesting a trade from a different location. Now you've got that, and that's why even after losing one of those first-round picks due to the allegations and the tampering penalties, and then also trading away the other to Bradley Chubb, that's a sign of confidence. Like, okay, now we're going after it, and also trading away those picks for Tyreek Hill. This team is ready to compete now and on a consistent level.
A lot of people think this is a Super Bowl quality roster. I tend to agree. But a lot of Dolphin fans, we got to start off with a hard one. A lot of Dolphin fans, they think that Byron Jones puts this defense over the top because, Phinside the NFL has been one of those channels where we've explained schematics. We've explained how this defense works, and how it works from the back end up. And people have seen the lack of the pass rush at times, and they've put it towards the secondary isn't fully right. Javon Holland's plays dipped, and that's because no longer does he have two responsible guys on each side that he's just got to worry about himself. He don't have to worry about each side now. He's got one side where he's got to keep a mind to, and you can that's what it's going to do. It's going to taking away from what he wants to do to make up for someone else. That's going to affect his production at one position with Javon Holland. Do you think Byron Jones returns? And if you do you think that's almost as big of a Jeff Wilson or Bradley Chubb deadline addition to this defense that it could put it over the top and get us back to what we were?
I'll tell you, the more time that passes without a positive update that he has returned to practice, it leads me to believe, and this is on the pessimistic side, that he probably won't. It gives me those Will Fuller vibes just the deeper we get into the season, because you also have to count backwards from, all right, he hasn't even returned to practice yet. So you're looking at least 2 weeks probably, and then probably a third on top of that before you can really get him back into a game once he is back on the practice field. And he does have a 21-day window if they do decide to bring him back for practices. Then, we're already now 10 weeks into the season. You have the bye week now. But so you start counting backwards, and how much time can you really get him in for, assuming you do need that window? And not only that, then once he is back, he's not going to be fully right his first game back. So you need a few weeks, a few games before he can really look like himself. So really, you're almost up against it. It needs to happen one of these next couple of game weeks where we get that update to really believe he can be there for the final run and maybe be himself like we've seen in the past for a potential playoff run, which is what you really want out of him if you can get him back. So I look at it, and if you are able to get him back from that perspective to answer that side, I think that would be a huge addition to the caliber of the moves that the Dolphins have made, like adding a Bradley Chubb and Jeff Wilson to improve the run game and really bring that balance to the offense, and the run game itself having his powerful presence in there, his physical presence. So, if you get Byron Jones and just the way Josh Boyer wants to be aggressive defensively, if you're able to have him and Xavier Howard on opposite sides locking down their man, and him, Byron Jones, looking the way he has in the past, just being able to hold down his side, even if his interception numbers aren't that high, but he still contributes in ways where it frees up other defenders.
Yep.
You can blitz more often, bring extra pass rushers like Boyer likes to do. Two aspects of the defense that have been limited in how much Boyer can do because they've had to use other corners. Granted, you like the development of Kader Kohu, so now that could be a plus also. If you get Byron Jones back into the fold, that now you also have a Kader Kohu, despite now missing Nick Needham for the season, as well as Brandon Jones, a strong safety, where they've also been mixing and matching there. So, Byron Jones would be a huge boost if the Dolphins are able to get him back for the stretch run.
Just a side note here. How impressed are you with Justin Bethel? I mean, he stepped in there and he's been absolutely phenomenal. When it looked like he might have got hurt on Sunday, I was actually worried because, he stepped up where we thought Trill Williams was going to step up and he got hurt, where we thought Nick Needham was going to. And Justin Bethel, he has actually been kind of a godsend for what he's actually been. What have just been your quick thoughts on Justin Bethel?
Yeah. For a career veteran special teamer to come in, saw the Pittsburgh game, he gets a huge interception there. And it's a credit to Sam Madison, Pat Surtain, the guys coaching the secondary, that despite all these injuries, both at cornerback and safety position with Brandon Jones, that they've been able to get guys in. Steve Gregory, of course, safeties coach when you mentioned safeties. So, getting a Kader Kohu ready, getting a Justin Bethel who hasn't played many defensive snaps in the past 6-7 seasons, and then needing him, and Noah Igbenogany even contributing in that Steelers game with the game-sealing interception after the Dolphins hadn't seen much from him in years past. So, credit the coaching as well for preparing these guys.
Yep. We will talk. Let's talk about this. Stick with the defense. Your thoughts overall on the Bradley Chubb edition? Bill Parcells. I mean, Dolphin fans don't forget who was through in this building. You remember one of his mottos was never pay for a player twice, right? You never pay for trade capital and then turn around and pay them a big contract. Your thoughts on the addition of Bradley Chubb now that you've seen him for a few games? Your thoughts on the cost it took to acquire him overall?
Yeah, going in, I mean, and I even said it on our show at the Sun Sentinel with Chris Perkins, the Dolphins Deep Dive, and it was on the trade deadline day. I wasn't sure if I would go ahead and give up that other first-round pick, and then later on, hours later, the Dolphins do indeed pull the trigger, and really then once I saw the trade being made, then I kind of felt, man, what was I thinking? Like, you go after it, especially with this roster you have. And then now, even more so, Emmanuel Ogba is injured, so you need another pass rusher of his caliber. So really, now you couldn't predict that when it happened, but now to be able to package him, Jalen Phillips, Melvin Ingram, work Andrew Van Ginkel in there, and we know Jerome Baker can move from inside outside, and obviously up front, what Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer can do is just waves that the Dolphins pass rush can come at opponents, and we saw it now in his second game with Chubb in the fold that all 3 sacks were split sacks, so that's multiple guys getting there at the same time. There were 14 quarterback hits in total, so guys winning their matchups, and it's not just one guy. It's all right, so one guy wins on the edge, and then someone else is winning up the middle, so you can't step up in the pocket either, or both edges come, and then there's nowhere for the quarterback to go. So that's really what you want to see when you have that kind of multitude of edge rushers coming out after the quarterback.
I know he hasn't been getting home enough, but other than getting home, I mean, Jalen Phillips has just been having, I think, at least a special season. I mean, he's just getting better and better. But on the flip side, Emmanuel Ogba had a really rough season. And then obviously it ends in a way none of us wants to see it end with the bicep injury. I believe it was a bicep injury, right? That he's out for the season. Tricep, sorry. That he's out for the rest of the season. Sticking with Bradley Chubb, do you think this affects Ogba going into the offseason? Because the way they structured his contract, that contract is very tradable in terms of cap savings and such. When you look at, especially if they designate him as a post-June 1st trade. Do you think, guys, look at the money they're spending.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm going to throw you a little curveball. Okay. What do you think this impacts Ogba's, time here in the offseason? And number 2, because we know how zone defenses, like where McDaniel comes from, they like to invest heavily in the front, right? They don't invest heavily in the back end. They invest heavily in pass rushers. Do you see a potential transition happening here?
That's interesting. Yeah, potentially. And on Ogba's contract, then, yeah, I mean, I think already just the start to the season he was having made it so where, yeah, the team could be looking for other ways. And that's possibly a reason why you bring in a Bradley Chubb, where now you're kind of covered in having another pass rusher. Then you could make another move later on going forward. So very unfortunate for Ogba. I wrote my headline was that his season ended before it ever really got going. Just only saw that one sack early on, and what he finished with 11 tackles. I know he wasn't batting balls down at the line of scrimmage like we had gotten used to. So that was always a trademark of his. Even if he didn't get to the quarterback, he was still affecting them in other ways and batting down passes. And the quarterback still had to be wary of that, be aware of that. We weren't seeing that either. The quarterback hits were down off the pace that he had set the previous 2 seasons when he was in the 20s in that category, and then pitching 9 sacks each year. So was well down from in that regard right after he did get that contract. So definitely something to look at going forward. And as far as this defense goes, and at least now, they do have the Bradley Chubb acquisition, and you can do different things. Josh Boyer likes to have these versatile multiple fronts where, maybe we do see some more hand in the ground with either him or Jalen Phillips. Which Phillips did plenty of that at the University of Miami. And 3-man lines, you go with a base of Raekwon and Christian Wilkins, Zach Sealer on either side of him, then you incorporate some nickel packages where you'll have one fewer pass rusher and then keep guys fresh, rotating. And maybe Trey Flowers at some point can get back into the mix. He's not on season-ending IR, but right now it doesn't look great for him. Mike McDaniel didn't really have any update on when he might come back, so still dealing with that foot injury from that Minnesota game. So, but if he's able to come back, then he's also an option as well.
Yeah, you covered Jalen Phillips at Miami, right? So, I mean, you're watching him right now. Like, do you see this guy blossoming into I think this guy's turning into a top 10 pass rusher, man. Like, do you see? I mean, you've watched him firsthand grow. What are you impressed by the growth you've seen at the NFL level from him?
Yeah, without a doubt. And really, I mean, it was I was expecting this from when I saw that season, that 2020 COVID year, my last covering the University of Miami, and then as he transitioned to the Dolphins as a first-round pick. And yeah, that was in a 4-3 defense that Manny Diaz ran. So he was handing the ground a strictly defensive end, very rarely dropped back. And he was on the opposite side of Quincy Roche. A lot of people forget. So the two first-round picks the Hurricanes had were him and Greg Rousseau with Buffalo, but Rousseau actually opted out for the COVID year because he already set himself up from the 2019 season. So Rousseau and Jalen Phillips never played together. They were on the same roster, but Phillips in 2019 was coming off his transfer from UCLA. So just interesting how they never played together, but then first-round picks out of the same alma mater, and we've seen them both blossom. But now Jalen Phillips, especially the pass rush win rate, the way even if he's not getting home, just he is winning his matchups, and we're seeing progress in him setting the edge as well, and the way he's transformed his body too is just so impressive. The guy, he lost so much weight when he was took that year off transferring, and when he actually retired from football. It's hard to imagine that all those concussions and other injuries at UCLA led him to momentarily retire, and then he got that drive back into him. He was down to like 215 pounds. He lost so much muscle mass and built himself back up for that season, and then even had to like cut down because he got a little like higher weight wise than he wanted to, and has just really developed into a physical specimen.
Were you surprised, because given the last couple regimes, especially the Flores regime, very stubborn, especially to move off and admit guys or admit they were wrong, their mistakes, whatever the case may be. Were you surprised by the lack of ego and the willingness to admit they were wrong with the Chase Edmonds edition, and how quickly they said, okay, this isn't working, we got to move off of him, let's get an upgrade?
Yeah, maybe a little surprising because, it only went half a season. But I mean, the way Mike McDaniel said it, and I believe what you want is that the Broncos wanted him. He had to be part of the deal. Listen, I felt it wasn't a great fit necessarily because him and Raheem Mostert, neither one is a more physical in between the tackles runner. And that was something that the run game lacked, was having that physical runner. And Sony Michel could have maybe provided some sort of semblance of that, just maybe a little bit more than the other two. And Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed really don't either. So, but it was a good fit. It was really just the best move possible to, if you move on from him in one deal that brings you Bradley Chubb, and then also you end up getting a Jeff Wilson for a fifth-round pick. That's a huge coup. And, I mean, we're seeing the dividends pay off right away. Jeff Wilson already going over 100 yards in his second game. He was scoring from his first game with the Dolphins. Fits right in. Chase Edmonds, he was really more of an inside zone runner from all his past experience at every level, really. And then now you have two backs that really know and understand the wide zone scheme in Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson, guys that know Mike McDaniel, play together in San Francisco. So, really, it's a perfect marriage now.
Yeah, because you see the big difference you notice right off the bang between Jeff Wilson and Chase Edmonds is the vision, right? Like, he's anticipating holes, and he's a big guy, but he's making himself skinny to get through holes before they even open up. Like, you can see the vision, even though he's a downhill runner, the vision is what makes him so good. That was clear between Mostert and Chase Edmonds. Mostert had the vision to get to the second level, to see where he needed to cut, to see where the holes were going to be. And it was clear Chase Edmonds just really didn't have the feel and didn't have the vision we needed in this defense, because seeing 195 yards put up, a 65 by Raheem Mostert and 119 by Jeff Wilson. And they were just, Raheem averaging over 8 yards per carry. And Jeff, I mean, what, is Jeff Wilson, because a lot of people are making this comparison, is he giving you J.J. vibes?
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe not to that level of that season.
Yeah.
200-yard performances. Yeah, but I mean, and also he's going to be splitting the workload plenty with Raheem. So maybe from yards per carry standpoint, he could get to
just a running style,
Yeah, and a running style, sure, yeah, because I mean, you mentioned he got the vision and then he's able to make himself skinny, but then he'll go and deliver some punishment as well that we saw in a couple instances, and that's huge to get that early in a game. Really wears down a defense. So I love it to see that early on, and then open things up for when Raheem Mostert gets his opportunities and he has that breakaway speed, and the defense has been worn out from having to tackle and then also receive punishment from a Jeff Wilson. So I really love the combination.
We got to give the offensive line their flowers because they've really come together here. Even in the running game, I mean, you see the holes that were being opened up too. I mean, Armstead's been an absolute godsend. Connor Williams, at least after the snap, has been playing at an all-pro level. He's still having a little bit of issues with the snap. But two guys, I wanted to specifically ask you about, do you think Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson get their jobs back with how good Robert Jones and Brandon Shell have looked? Because McDaniel, he said, Austin Jackson's a starting right tackle, blah, 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 blah. But I think that was more from hey, I don't want to kill this kid's confidence standpoint. You don't see them fixing something that ain't broke, do you?
Yeah, if it were me, I would stick with the offensive line that you have going right now with Brandon Shell, what he's shown, leave him at right tackle. And then Robert Jones has been a tremendous fit as he stepped in there for Eichenberg. And really, we saw so many games where Eichenberg struggled that then now you're getting solid left guard play out of Jones. It's got to make you wonder. Yeah, I would stick with them. I think McDaniel's taking the right approach. Still keep their, especially in Jackson's case, because he's now coming back, keep his confidence up and, maybe really let them compete, show it on the practice field. And if Jackson is showing that he is actually a step up from what we're getting from Shell, then go ahead and reinsert him. That is the position that he held from the start. But I find it hard to believe right now with the way Shell is playing that he would give up that spot. So that's what I would go with myself personally.
And just a little thing here, when you talk about Mostert, Wilson, and Shell and Jones, the great thing is the guys who have stepped up and we can depend on in the run game and on the offensive line now, they're all cheap fixes. These aren't guys that if we want to bring back, they're going to break the bank, right? Like, so that's what you got to like about it too, man. Do you think the Dolphins have surpassed the Bills this season talent-wise, or do you need to see them win on the road in Buffalo first? Because I'm going to tell you right now, David, there isn't a team in the AFC that worries me.
Ooh. I still see. I don't want to get too carried away because I did feel going into the season that at this point they would have a successful run. I saw maybe them taking some hits early and then really getting off to a win streak. So really, when I was playing out game by game the schedule, I was thinking after the Texans game they would get to 8-3, and then it would be a tough final stretch, and then they find their way. Either it's going to be a 10 or 11 win season. Now that I'm seeing it, I'm inclined to feel like, they are closer. I didn't think they were that close to Buffalo, but now maybe inclined to believe they are at least closer. You match the roster side by side, and they're right there. So now it will take more it's always a difficult thing for Miami if Buffalo ends up winning the division, and then Miami has to go on the road in a cold environment in a wild card playoff game. That's always a challenge. The Dolphins really haven't had to face that yet because Chicago, it was windy, but they didn't get the cold temperatures there. It was 60. So really looked out temperature wise. It could have easily been in the 30s in Chicago that time of year. Detroit is a dome. And now we'll see those tests come when mid-December, they go at Buffalo. New Year's Day, they play at New England. So at least by playoff time, you'll get those two games in a cold environment if the Dolphins do end up having to go on the road and are the wild card team. So right now, it's still big picture. Give Buffalo the slight edge. They've been there before. They've made playoff runs. sometimes it takes getting there first and losing before you take that next step.
Yeah.
So that might be the trajectory that the Dolphins have to go through now, whereas the Bills had to go through it with the Kansas City Chiefs, and maybe that's kind of just like the natural way things go. I know it happens in basketball a lot. NFL, the teams can jump over others even easier. Like
Bengals.
Cincinnati went to the Super Bowl last year,
Yeah.
so definitely possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would still give Buffalo a slight edge with the Dolphins getting closer and closer by the week.
You give him the slight edge with how Josh Allen's been throwing the
Yeah,
football.
overall, overall, I would imagine he gets those things corrected. I know last 3 games, Tua Tagovailoa, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions. Josh Allen, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So, and that key fumble in that Minnesota game. So, yeah, not judging by this 3-game stretch, but entire body of work. Then still, I'd stick with Buffalo slightly, but the Dolphins right now are looking way better, and could in the grand scheme catch up very quickly.
David, I did my post game live after we were done, and in the middle of going live for my post game and ending my live reaction show to the Browns game, I turned the game off when Cousins didn't get the quarterback sneak in. I'm like, they're done. So I go live, right? And I'm looking at the comment section, and everyone's like talking like the Vikings got a chance to win this. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? So I turn it back on. I'm like, what did I missed the whole Allen fumble and everything. And I was like, whoa, what happened here? You know what I mean? Though that was a wild game, man. That was unbelievable.
I was in the post-game interview process after the Dolphins game, and we're all updating our phone, checking different apps for the score, the latest play, thinking it's over. And then I'm seeing some tweets like, "What is going on?" Oh, it's like, what crazy thing could have possibly happened?
Who's going to be the guy in the media room to pull up the game on quiet on his TV and everyone huddles around? I one of the things I've been saying the last couple weeks. And now that we have home field advantage for the first 2 rounds, if you think about it, because right now as it sits, anything can change. A lot of football to be played. Yeah. But if it ended today, we'd have home field advantage for the first 2 rounds. And I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, David, if this team gets home field advantage, I think they're the most dangerous team in the AFC. And I mean, you know why I'm probably saying that, because it goes deeper than the offense. It's how our defense has been playing at home. Do you think there's validity to that statement that, right now this year with this roster and just the way they're playing at home, Hard Rock is I think it's one of the tougher places to win in the AFC right now. I mean, the only time we lost was when Tua didn't play. And let's be honest, the Vikings looked pretty pedestrian until they pulled away at the end there. What are your thoughts? Do you think if this team can get home field advantage for the first 2 rounds? I think that's a ticket to the AFC Championship. I think we're going to the AFC Championship if we get home field advantage. I'm not going to ask you to say that, but do you think this becomes one of the most dangerous teams in the AFC if they can get home field advantage?
Absolutely, yeah. If you're playing 2 home games, if you get the number 2 seed, you're at home against a 7 seed in the first round, the wild card round. Then your divisional round, you got if right now it would be Kansas City getting the bye, but then you also get a home game in the divisional round, then absolutely. I would say that is a ticket to the AFC Championship game. And I mean, playoffs, things can happen. The home field advantage for the Dolphins is always greater early in the season than later. Then it starts to even out. But even then, you still sometimes have some games late in the year where it's still very hot and humid in Miami, and then maybe northern teams have already gotten their bodies so accustomed to the frigid temperatures and the snow, and then maybe it ends up being 75 in Miami and still humid in January. And then it's still a huge difference, kind of like a pitcher in baseball that doesn't throw that hard of a fastball, but then their changeup is a big mile per hour difference. Then it could still really impact guys coming down here. And really, I really can't put my finger on why the defense plays so differently at home versus away.
I was going to ask you. What do you make of those woes? What do you make of those woes on the road? Because we give up like 15 points per game at home. We give up like 30 on the road steady. Well, I mean, what are your woes? I mean, thank God the offense can now carry this team. But what do you make of those woes? Like, because I know you've been talking with your colleagues. You guys have got to be spitballing something. What do you guys make of it?
Yeah, it's hard to really put your finger on it. I mean, there's fans at Hard Rock Stadium. I mean, I don't want to say like that makes that big of a difference. I mean, sure, they get up for third downs and stuff, but really you're talking about the same guys, and some of it has to do with the opponents. Okay, Justin Fields, they struggle with scrambling quarterbacks, so they let him get off. That's something I want to see them fix going forward, because you don't want that to happen against a Lamar Jackson again if you face him in the postseason, or a Josh Allen, which you will see one more time in the regular season as well. So fix that part of it. Detroit was a team that had, at one point they were high powered and were among the league leaders in a few offensive categories, but then their offense kind of fell off the previous couple of weeks. They hadn't scored a touchdown in a month, and then they do what they did against the Dolphins. And Baltimore game obviously had to come back. Cincinnati was on a short week, so I won't look too much into that, going on the road on a short week, but it's hard to really put your finger on it, and that's one thing you really want to see when the Dolphins hit the road again on the West Coast swing at Buffalo, at New England, toward the final stretch. Have at least a couple of games where you really show that dominant defense on the road, and that'll give me a lot more confidence. And a unit that I really do have a lot of confidence in,
So do I.
Regardless.
Let me ask you this. Could it come down to a little thing like this? We know this defense is built to play with a lead, really. On the road, would you be more inclined to defer? Because we keep winning and we just don't, and we keep deferring to start, where maybe, on the road, it would be better to take the football and set the tone and get the defense the lead early on. Because, every time when we defer on the road, those guys, we always get the ball just ran down our throat.
Yeah.
I know it's a little thing.
In Baltimore's case.
Yeah. Are you a fan of that? Have you noticed we've won like almost every coin toss and we defer? Are you a fan of that? I know it works out at halftime for a steady, but
yeah. Because look, then in the Cleveland game, you finish the first half with a touchdown, and then you get the ball to start the second half. We know Tua and the Dolphins offense has been really good on opening drives as well. So they did counter Cleveland's first touchdown drive with one of their own, and then also it was a huge swing end of the half to finish with a touchdown, and then start the second half with another. So. Yeah, as a general rule, I always I prefer to defer to the second half, because it really pays its dividends and comes through for you at halftime. But it's something interesting to think about, especially with how good the Dolphins offense is on opening drives. So setting the tone early.
So let me ask you this. Is Jason Sanders officially a liability in your mind? Because we're talking about the playoffs here, and you're going to need kickers. You're going to get into ugly games, or you're going to need field goals. You're going to need a guy to rely on. And I don't know if you've noticed it, David, but it's clear as day when Jason Sanders misses a kick out there. We've gotten to field goal range multiple times, like chip shots, and McDaniel says no, go for it on fourth. And then now he's so in his own head, David, that he's missing extra points. I know they're stuck to him contractually, but I would have brought some bodies in there to work them out, to even just send a message if you're not going to sign one of them, because Jason Sanders right now, my friend, I think he is. Do you think he's a liability right now?
Yeah, and some of Mike McDaniel's fourth down decisions are really more so his own aggressiveness than I know one game he said it had nothing to do with Jason Sanders, because he was actually kicking the ball well. I'm thinking it might have been, was it the Pittsburgh game that he said that when they went for that 4th and 3, Chase Edmonds didn't see the hole, and really it was a great play call.
It was there. The touchdown was there, the left side, and he kicked it back. Yeah,
it was there. Listen, now Sanders has missed 3 short kicks in the past 2 games. When it was the 29-yard field goal against Chicago, Mike McDaniel made the wind excuse for him. I never really bought it, because at the end of the day, even if there is wind, and yes, that was a factor, it's a 29-yard kick. Like NFL kickers, you just boot it hard, and it should be able to withstand those winds. And even if you have to adjust slightly to go against the wind, you can do that. It still has to be a made kick. And then now 2 extra points. That kick was shorter than an extra point, and then you missed 2 extra points in this game. So I think he's in his head a little bit. At the moment, we haven't seen the Dolphins work out a kicker yet that I know of. I've been on the program, so I haven't checked any latest update. McDaniel did say on Monday he's expressed his confidence in Jason Sanders and wants to stick with him, believes he'll get through it. I could side with that. Give him, if it continues to be a problem on the other side of the bye, which the bye comes at a good time for him to maybe disconnect a little bit, come back, pull it together, and then you see what you got down this next stretch. But if going into late in the season, you're getting into key games, and then he's potentially losing games for you with these missed field goals, and it changes the dynamic of the score as you proceed in games, then yeah, you'll probably have to make a move on the outside because you don't want this affecting you down the final stretch of the regular season and then the postseason.
I mean, you mentioned his aggressiveness on fourth down. Just your thoughts on McDaniel's first 10 weeks as an NFL coach in the regular season, because he's faced adversity. He faced, all these injuries, key injuries. He's faced a 3-game losing streak. Just your overall thoughts on him, because where I stand, this guy's an early coach of the year candidate. But what are your thoughts on the first 10 weeks of Mike McDaniel?
Yeah, I'd say the same, and it's really impressed me how he's galvanized his players, and that was the big question mark is, okay, yeah, he's this mastermind offensive whiz and is creative, innovative, and does all these things offensively. Can he coach both sides of the ball, and can he be a leader of men in the locker room? And but every time you see one of those clips that the Dolphins put out, and granted, yeah, that's what the team puts out there, but yeah, you really see the guys fighting for him. You really see that even the veterans, they're right there listening to his every word, and they want to fight for him. And I think it's because they see that he's there to support them. He supports them. Like, hey, look, we just talked about Jason Sanders. McDaniel made all these positive remarks about him in a moment where he's struggling. So I think players do sense that, and they feel that, and they appreciate it, and they want to fight for him when they see that. He didn't bad talk Chase Edmonds on his way out, even though, like me and you, we said, yeah, it didn't really click for Edmonds over here, but McDaniel, he still wanted to support him and publicly, made positive remarks about his tenure with the Dolphins. So, yeah, I think players really do appreciate that, and they want to play for a coach like that. And that's what's been most impressive, on top of everything he provides offensively, and just, some of the decisions in game haven't gone his way, some time management issues, whether it be in the Chicago game, some costly fourth down decisions. But hey, it also worked in the opener when he went for the 4th and 7 before halftime, and it resulted in a Jalen Waddle touchdown. So you win some, you lose some with those decisions. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, what we're seeing as a first-year coach, it's got to leave you very encouraged.
Finally, with the coaches here, just sticking with the coaches here before we get into these last couple questions. I think we got the worst special teams unit in the NFL right now, and we weren't that great last year on special teams. Do you think Danny Crossman's seat is getting a little bit warm? And on top of that, we talked about the road defense and the home defense, and a lot of people were calling. I know you probably saw a lot of people have been calling for Boyer's head. Do you think Boyer gets it all together? Do you think Boyer gets it all together defensively? And do you think Danny Crossman's seat's getting a little bit warm with what we've seen from special teams this year?
Yeah, with Boyer, I'd side on the area of, I think he will get it together. See this defense produce more consistently. Now we've got 2 games where we saw Bradley Chubb incorporated, and I think they're going to be trending in the right direction. If Byron Jones comes back, which you were kind of pessimistic on that becoming a reality, but if it does, then that'll be a huge boost to the defense, and then Boyer can really do the things that he likes to do defensively, as we chronicled earlier. And then, yeah, I mean, Danny Crossman's seat may very well be getting hot. It's the special teams unit has struggled. I know all kind of metrics rank it very low. I don't have them all in front of me. You might have them, but I know that special teams overall has not been effective, and every week it seems like there's something. So opening kickoff this past game, you give up the long return, and guys just not in their lanes. So something is not being communicated correctly there. Yeah. And then now Jason Sanders is in his own head with these short kicks. I do like Thomas Morstead in the punting game, and I like the way Keon Crossan and Justin Bethel have been gunning down there. And I think that has been a plus in special teams. Morstead didn't even have to punt last game, so it's always better when you don't have to use them. But yeah, overall, it seems like there's always at least one thing that goes wrong special teams wise, whether it's a fake punt given up, a kickoff return touchdown against Baltimore, a butt punt that we saw that one time, Trent Sherfield in Morstead. So, just blunder after blunder, and I want to see a game where the Dolphins actually just come out of games scot-free special teams wise.
I agree. Do you see a Wilkins extension getting done this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, the way it's going, I would make that a priority. I mean, he's vital to this defense. Mm-hmm. What he provides in the run game. I mean, the step he took last year He almost set a defensive lineman record for tackles by a defensive lineman. Getting that Cam Hayward range there. So yeah, I think he's vital in just the different spots that he can line up, whether it be 3 technique and then other spots, and just especially now with Ogba down, maybe you see some more versatility out of him, and the way he also rushes the passer, whether it be inside or just flat out beating his man, and then the dynamic that brings with multiple guys winning their matchups when you have him and Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Melvin Ingram, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jerome Baker can line up different spots. He was a first-round pick for a reason, and he's really proven to be that caliber of a defensive lineman. So I would make that a priority.
Yeah, you love it when a player takes a step every year. You see improvement. Yeah. It's awesome. Who's your midseason MVP?
Boy, we've said it on our Sun Sentinel program. Tyreek Hill has been the runaway guy. But then now I see this game that Tua just had where he's spreading the ball around, and it wasn't so dependent on Tyreek Hill having another 150-plus yard game. And then now Tua, with this 3-game stretch, is really putting himself in that range. And hey, the Dolphins have won every game that he has started and finished, and went 0-3 when they had him either go down in the Cincinnati game or didn't have him at all in the other games. So now it's becoming a really hotly contested debate between those two. And I know the fans are chanting MVP, and it's for Tua. And usually the quarterback is the one that overall is going to be getting those MVP votes. It's really hard for a receiver to win it. So early in the season, I was saying Tyreek Hill by a long shot, but now Tua is getting up there with him. So, and there's other guys you could say as well, but I think it's a 1A, 1B right now with Hill and Tua.
Yeah, seeing him put over 300 yards up, and the highest receiver was 66 yards, right? And just spreading the ball around, distributing. The guy's turned into the point guard of this offense. It's clear. Do you think Tyreek's only way to get MVP by the end of the season is he's got to break 2K?
Yeah, absolutely. You got to set a record. I think we haven't even had a wide receiver win an MVP. Right. Last time I looked, I didn't see one. And last time it was a non-quarterback. What was it? Was it the Adrian Peterson season? Was that 12 or? I think
and then LaDainian won in 2006 when he had 2,000 yards, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, or was it 2000? Or he also he was big in the pass game too. It was a different year. Yeah. So, it's even hard for a running back to win it. So Peterson had to set a record that year now. And then, Calvin Johnson wasn't an MVP when he set what is the current mark. So, I would think it has to be a record and a situation where, it was where voters determined it was Tyreek Hill's impact that really put the Dolphins over the top. And probably the Dolphins have to get to a point where they do win the division over the Bills, because if the Bills as a Super Bowl favorites end up as a wild card team instead, and the Dolphins win the division, then you probably got to go to the Dolphins. And there's other teams to consider, but probably got to look at the Dolphins for an MVP candidate. And really it's going to be 2. And I wonder if there's going to be some vote splitting. I know that happens in college football with Heisman stuff when there's 2 very viable candidates, but it would have to take a record for Tyreek Hill specifically to really be in the conversation.
Yeah, that year, LaDainian 2006, he had 1815 rushing, 508 receiving, but he set their NFL record for rushing. He had 28 rushing touchdowns that year.
Oh, yes.
So he had to set the rushing touchdown record, right? So, and Adrian Peterson, like you said, he set the single season rushing record, I'm pretty sure, right? And then, bro, I got to ask you this, and this is the final thing we're going to go here. What do you make of the flip we've seen? Because, and I've said this. Is wins a quarterback stat? No, not out the gate. But after 2 or 3 years, they start becoming quarterback stats and coaching stats. I mean, look at Tua. We talked about winning, right? 0-3 when we didn't play this year. But look at Flores' record, right? Yeah, and all the quarterbacks that went through there, Jacoby Brissett, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh Rosen, he couldn't even sniff his record with Tua. And with Fitz especially, he had the same defense. It's just Tua, even when he has games that you can't hang your hat on, he still usually does enough for you to win that game. He's got that winner's DNA, which I know people don't like that saying, but he's got it. I don't know what to tell you. And what do you make of the flip? Because now Herbert, old Goldilocks, he's no longer the media's darling because, David, he doesn't win enough. And then they're looking at Tua, and Tua's putting up the numbers, but then they're looking at Tua's body of work, and they're saying, oh, he won all that? Well, we didn't like him too. And they're saying, oh, Tua just wins right now. So what do you make about the flip that everyone's on the Tua bandwagon in the media, and all of a sudden Herbert is no longer and Burrow really, because he struggled a little bit this year, but he's not getting anywhere near the flack Herbert is getting. Herbert's no longer the apple of the eye, and Tua is becoming that. What do you make of that media flip? Is this something you didn't even – I mean, we can talk about the stats. We didn't foresee them. I mean, I expected top 12 play. I didn't expect top 3 play out of the gate. Yeah. Is this just as unexpected, how the media flipped?
Yeah, I remember we were talking about it. When was it? I mean, off season or maybe even in the preseason. And I think we said something like top 12. That would be a nice spot to get, and like a bonus if it's top 10. And it's really been remarkable that we see this level of play where Tua is leading in so many different categories. The passer rating, whether it's overall or on third downs, fourth quarter, the yards per attempt, which was that huge knock on him, and he's leading the NFL in that category, and always had the wins on his side. And then everyone who would argue against Tua, and especially in the Tua Justin Herbert debate, it would always be, so Tua doesn't put up the stats, but he's able to win because the Dolphins are carried by their defense. And then Justin Herbert, well, if you look on the other side, but Justin Herbert has all the offensive weapons, and he's able to throw to his receivers, and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and he's got Austin Eckler back there, and in the O-line, which all these things that Tua doesn't have. So that's why the stats are skewed so much to Justin Herbert. Now we're seeing Tua put up both the wins and the stats. So it's really pretty remarkable. And then even through all that, hey, Justin Herbert hadn't made the playoffs in either of those 2 seasons. And really, and now he's been held down by some coaching miscues too. I mean, the Staley over there, he did what was it at the end of that Raiders game in Week 18? He was going for it, and the Raiders said, now we're gonna not just play for the tie and get in. We're gonna go ahead and down.
Can I tell you, David, when I saw Herbert, when you could read his lips on the sideline, he said, "I've never wanted a tie so much in my life." I'm like, this guy doesn't have the dog in him, because the dog's saying, "I don't want the tie. I want to go out there and egg you." And this guy's acting for a tie. I was like, what?
we need that meme of his X-rays after the game.
Yeah. Bro, you got kittens inside there. You don't got no dogs. And just finally, I got to ask you this. Are you shocked that there's still fans in this fan base that are pushing back so hard on Tua? Still, they are not giving him his flowers. And when really, David, he's giving us, and it's not even close, the best play since 13 was rocking the orange. And he's doing things, David, that 13 never did as a passer. And I don't want to hear, well, he did it against bad teams, because A, the Bears were the 5th ranked pass defense heading into that game. Number 2, David, are these people acting like Marino never had stretches in his career on his schedules of 3, 4, 5 bad teams in a row? Let's stop this right now. So, and another thing, people, it's the weapons. Sure, we can hang our hat on the last game, but I don't think many people know that the Mark brothers were 4-2 and 4-4 guys. I mean, there were speed demons in the 80s too, so he had them. So are you surprised that there's still fans in this base? Do you think there's just stuck in their agendas? They don't want to be wrong about him, and they don't want to be wrong in the sense of, that they were out on him way too early, because remember, David, and I know you saw it, a lot of people like me, when we said he needs the offensive line, he needs the weapons, he needs the coaching staff around him, we were told those were excuses when we tried to label that as that's the context of the situation. Now he's killed the narrative he showed. Those weren't the excuses. That's what the context of the situation. And people still don't want to give him his flowers, David. I mean, I know you're a reporter, so you try not to let fan bias get in the way, but I know you see the fans all around on Twitter and live while you're there. Are you still shocked that there's still people, because it's one thing for other fan bases to push back, but are you still surprised that there's people in this fan base pushing back when he's giving us play we haven't seen in over 20 years?
You actually surprised me when you told me that. I was unaware that there was still
There
very
are.
much from the Dolphins fan base, huh? You're saying?
You know what they're saying? Their new narrative is that because the goalposts keep now it is okay. This is great, but I want to see it in December and January.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, that's fair too. Let's go ahead and see it when they play this challenging stretch. And the way Tua is playing, I mean, he gives you confidence that he will get it done when that time comes. So, sure, yeah, fair from some perspectives. Yes, this is a soft part of the schedule, but like you said, Bears actually did have a strong pass defense. Granted, yeah, maybe some of it because teams were able to run on them, but got it done
and
there.
The first 3 games were murderers row on this schedule.
Yeah,
Let's not forget.
And he won. Right.
Yeah.
Regardless. Now, you might week 1 against the Patriots, week 3 against the Bills, you would err on the side of, okay, yeah, the defense led those victories. But still, like you said, I mean, he does the things to win you games. He hasn't made costly mistakes. I think in past years you would see maybe he would have a good game, but maybe make the 1 mistake or maybe 2. And then he would usually bounce back from that one on the ensuing drive. But now we're not even seeing that. He's just playing really close to perfect quarterback play. And I think of and then just combining the moments like he has that stretch at the end of the first half where 3rd and 6, he needs it. He throws a perfect ball on the quick out, 7 yards to Jalen Waddle down the sideline that you need.
That was a ridiculous throw, bro.
Right. And I mean, sure. Okay. Yeah. It's just a 7-yard out, whatever. But you need to put zip on the ball. You need to put it in the right spot because that could go for a pick 6 the other way if you don't put it in the right spot. And what Tua has always been criticized for, his arm strength and zip, he had it on that throw. Then right after his very next throw, that dime in the back of the end zone to Trent Sherfield, which was in the perfect spot to allow him to toe tap in. So he's putting together these moments. And yeah, in the past, everyone said, yeah, they're winning in spite of him or despite him. But I mean, now he is becoming the reason. And I said this also on our program earlier is what if all 3 things are true that, okay, the Mike McDaniel offense is tremendous at getting guys open and misdirecting defenses and creating for playmakers. And that 1, right? And 2, that Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are phenomenal wide receivers that can get open and will create separation and make things easy for a quarterback. But that also 3, Tua is just playing out of his mind right now. And it's really just all 3 of these things coming together. So it's not like, oh, okay, he's only putting up these numbers because everything is so fine-tuned for him and it's quarterback proof.
He's reading all 3 levels like we've never seen before.
Yeah. It's really
the
all
confidence is there. Yeah, man. People can't, you just watch his head and that tells you the story, right? Like he's reading all 3 levels. Yeah, his processing is elite right now. I mean, I don't know what else to say, right? Like he just understands. And we heard rumblings about it early on that he was one of the guys grasping the offense really quickly. And, and now you're seeing the results and it's a beautiful thing, David. Man. 7-3 for the first time since 2001. All right. The iPhone wasn't even out and Tua was 3 years old. So I'll take it. All right. Brother, always a good conversation. I love having you on, man.
Likewise,
and I know the subs love you too, brother. So always a good conversation. And when I get out, the wife's got a promotion and that's why I haven't been down this year. So when I get down there next year, we're going out for a beer, brother, and we're going to chop it up. So again, I appreciate you, man. Can you, plug your show with Perk? I know what people can find you at the Sun Sentinel, but go ahead and plug what you got coming up on the, what you got coming up.
Yeah. So right before airing this, I filmed a Dolphins deep dive with Perk. Yeah, it's Chris Perkins at the Sun Sentinel. So it's his weekly program. And then I join bi-weekly. So it's either myself or our columnist, Dave Hyde, who joins them every week. So great stuff as always on that show. We detailed a lot of things we covered here. Tua, bi-week outlook, the Bradley Chubb, Jeff Wilson additions, what they've meant to this team. And now we got a bye week, so a little bit of time off, but then also still providing you some content, some articles throughout the week. I actually talked to a few guys about some of their business ventures outside of football. So I thought that was a good bye-week story to get going. So awesome. I'm going to be posting that this week at sunsentinel.com. And then we get right back to it after the bye. Houston at home. And then I'm going to be having a lot of fun on that West Coast trip. I'm going to be there for the whole thing. San Francisco first, which is really like San Jose area, Santa Clara. But I'm going to try to get out to San Francisco, see that one of those days, and then LA. They'll be practicing on the West Coast, which is a great move, by the way. So you don't go back and forth when you have those two West Coast games. So probably I really look for the Dolphins to be acclimated to the Pacific time, especially for that second game against the LA Chargers by then. So maybe it affects them in the San Francisco game, but then I think they'll be really acclimated by that LA Chargers game. So looking forward to that.
Living the dream, brother. Living the dream. Yeah. And really, to be honest with you, the only games that I look at sideways left on the schedule, two of them we talked about earlier, New England and Buffalo. And that's just because historically we haven't been great traveling to those places. It don't matter whether it's December or September. And that San Francisco game you named, because the protege versus the master, I think they're a really good roster too. So those are the only games I'm kind of looking at sideways right now. And yes, I didn't forget about the Packers. Anyways, again, David, awesome. Thank you for joining me. Always a pleasure. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Everyone, I will be back next week. And unless something breaks this weekend, because y'all are seeing this on Thursday. So I will be back next week. Look for me on Monday. Until then, everyone stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed. Enjoy the weekend of stress-free football, because we're not on the edge of our couches watching the Dolphins. As always, fins up all day, every day. Guys, take it easy. Let's go!